Hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another installment of my DC Rebirth reading guide series. Today's video 4.1, in which we're finally starting section 4 of my core Rebirth guide. The last few videos, if you've been watching this in the real world in real time, have been custom binds and various other bits and pieces, but today we are looking at the Teen Titans or Titans section of the core continuity. Just a quick recap to where this fits in. We've got to remember I've read all of the DC Rebirth era of comics. That's 3,370 issues, give or take. And I've been releasing a guide for this in various sections. We're now going through the core continuity part. That's 2,724 single issues. What I'm showing you now, the playlist on my channel. There's one playlist that covers literally every single DC Rebirth video I have done and will ever do. But that's then split and curated into 3 separate smaller videos. There's one for smaller sort of non-core bits like licensed worlds, black label, things like that. There's another playlist for custom Rebirth comics, which is what the last few videos have included as well, where I've shown some custom binds and some custom changes I've made to my hardcovers. And then there's this playlist, which is DC Rebirth core videos, which is only the core videos from that massive all-encompassing playlist. And this is for the core Rebirth continuity. Hopefully those playlists make it useful to understand how this is all set out. I would remind you before you watch this video, you should really go back and watch the introduction for the whole series as video 0.0, which sets the scene for this whole era of comics, as well as explaining how this reading guide follows directly on from my New 52 guide. It also covers some key concepts that I refer to as part of the vocabulary of how I talk about comics, things like type P and J readers, and volumes with a small v and some volumes with a big V. That's key to understanding what I'm doing, because I don't like repeating myself. But with no further ado, let's dive into today's video. Let's have a look at those Titans. And here we have the map. This is a new map specifically for section 4 of the core DC Rebirth universe guide, because this is specifically for the Titans or Teen Titans section of that universe. As you can see here, we have the schematic and overarching event map at the top, and then we're going to dive into the trade paperbacks here. Some of these events will be events that we're familiar with, and as such we're going to relatively quickly go through those ones. But a lot of them are new things that are ones you won't even have seen mentioned on the previous map where we talked about Justice League and Suicide Squad. So to start off with, I'm going to dive in at a slightly strategic level. And what we have here is the Teen Titans universe, or part of the universe. So this section's an unusually unsatisfying one, much like the comics that preceded it in the New 52 to be honest, which was the young section of the New 52 map. The Titans corner of the DC universe of DC Rebirth includes these 3 main series, which I'll just zoom into here. So we've got Teen Titans, which in this incarnation of Teen Titans is actually dominated by Damian Wayne as the leader, and that actually changed the dynamic of Teen Titans quite a lot. The previous incarnation of the team didn't have Damian in them, so having him in there as the leader essentially puts this a lot closer to the Bat family than previous incarnations. I am aware that previously the Teen Titans were led by Red Robin, who was Tim Drake and a former Robin, but trust me, when you read it, the dynamic here is much more Bat focused than previously has been the case. Then at the bottom here you can see there's Titans, which is the grown-up evolution of a previous iteration of the Teen Titans, and is led by Nightwing. But again, because of that, this team feels vaguely adjacent to the Bat family. Finally, there is Deathstroke. Definitely not a teenager, definitely not a hero, and definitely not a Titan. But this anti-hero character is one that's kind of difficult to fully appreciate, because whilst being one of the greatest killers in the world, his story arcs tend to devolve into angsty, family, melodramatic bullshit and an obsession with the Teen Titans that frankly does the potential that this character has a bit of a disservice. It always feels weird to me how much Slade Wilson is tied into this relatively small-time, Scooby-Doo-esque kind of Teen Titans-y shenanigans, to be honest. So, yeah, that's what we have here. Around it, there are other series, and these are the boxes in white, which essentially mean these are series which you don't have to read, but at one point or another, they're going to intersect with the Teen Titans event. So you might want to read them, at least need to be aware that they exist and so on. But again, as usual, all the yellow lines are optional and are not things that you need to read, and I'm not going to dive into those in a huge amount of detail. So just as a very quick overview, we've got those 3 series. They have one merged event in Lazarus Contract here. And then we have Dark Knight's Metal, which is only included because Teen Titans intersects with it. Teen Titans then intersects with Super Sons of Tomorrow, which is actually part of the Superman family. A couple of them then sort of intersect with No Justice, but Deathstroke does not. And then Deathstroke and Teen Titans intersect in the Terminus agenda, before Titans continues on with Drowned Earth, which you can see here as something intersecting with Aquaman. We then have Year of the Villain, and then Endless Winter before we get to Future State. So this should all look reasonably familiar in terms of stuff that we've talked about on previous videos in section 3. So here, what I'm going to do now is scroll down to the trade paperback level. There you are. So the trade paperback level here is pretty much as you'd expect, with all the events fleshed out and so on. And what I'm going to do is talk through them. And today we're going to start off with Teen Titans. The next video after this will be Deathstroke, and the video after that will be Titans. So we're going to do one series in one video. So let's start off with Teen Titans, which is here, the top line. So this is written by Ben Percy with art from Koi Pham. Trade paperback collection 1, that's volume with a small v1, is called Damian Knows Best. Obviously, like I said, Damian Wayne kind of dominates this one. And that's here, and that collects the Rebirth one-shot for Teen Titans, and then Teen Titans issue 1 to 5. And then straight away, we are moving into a crossover event. And in that, we are moving into the Lazarus contract. Okay, what you can see here is a single one-image overview of the Lazarus contract in my usual Thomas Judge style. Whilst I talk it through, I'm actually going to at one point show you an alternative way of kind of doing the visual for this. And it'd be really useful in the comments below if you could tell me what you think, if you prefer one to the other or which one you prefer, because the latter is a much more polished DC thing. But we'll get to that in a second. Firstly, as you can see here in the Lazarus contract, it's a Deathstroke Teen Titans crossover event featuring the Flash. The interesting thing about the name, the Lazarus contract, is that it sounds really familiar, but it's not. The reason they picked the name is there was a really famous Teen Titans story from 1984 called the Judas Contract. And in the Judas Contract, various really important things happen. And the Lazarus Contract is completely unrelated to that, but obviously very evocative of the same kind of name. Anyway, the Lazarus Contract story revolves around Deathstroke trying to steal the Flash's powers in order to travel back in time to save his son. Like I told you, lots of family melodrama in the Deathstroke universe. So the issues you can see here are the issues collected in the Lazarus Contract trade collection. That's Titans issue 11, Teen Titans issue 8, Deathstroke issue 19. This says to be confirmed in Teen Titans Annual 1 at the end if you're reading it in singles, but it's not continued in that because there is no Teen Titans Annual 1. There is instead the Teen Titans Lazarus Contract Special, which ends with quite an important event for Teen Titans, and then it has Deathstroke 20. Let me flip over to the other version of this graphic, just because I'm really keen to get your idea as to whether you like this or whether you prefer the old school Thomas Judge version. But anyway, just while you're looking at this, one thing I will say about the Lazarus Contract is that it's not a numbered volume. It's not a volume 1 or 2 or volume with a big V or volume with a small v. It is a standalone collection that's not numbered at all. It's literally just called Lazarus Contract. And if you're looking for it in your local comic book shop and you're looking for it on the shelf, that's something to keep in mind. So with that out of the way, let's jump back to the map. And here we are back at the map. So let's zoom back over to Teen Titans. We've got Robin Knows Best there. And then as I just mentioned, here we have the Titans Lazarus Contract, with that crossing across all 3 series. Next, and if I hover over this, you'll see it's just called the Lazarus Contract. Next, if we go over here, we've got Teen Titans Volume 2. So the second collection of Teen Titans, but the third one you would read, because you read this, you read that, you read the other. And that's called The Rise of Aqualad. Now, The Rise of Aqualad collects Teen Titans issues 6 to 7, which is a 2-part arc introduced Aqualad. It doesn't include issue 8, because issue 8 is included over here in the Lazarus Contract. But reading it in terms of sequencing, you're fine to read this first and then read volume 2. So volume 2 contains issues 6 and 7. It doesn't contain issue 8, and then it contains issues 9, 10, and 11. And issues 9, 10, and 11 very much deal with the impact and the fallout of the events of the Lazarus contract, especially with what happens to the Teen Titans in issue 8. So that's what we have here. I do want to just stress out that issues 13 and 14 are not collected here. We'll talk about that momentarily. But what I will point out is that after this, you then have Dark Knight's Metal. And I guess we should probably talk about that very briefly now. I'm not going to dwell on the Dark Knight's Metal event in a huge amount of detail here because it's already been covered in section 3 when I was talking about Suicide Squad and Justice League. What I will do is just show you this, which is the trade paperback for Dark Knight's Metal, The Resistance. You can see all the issues here, which are included in it. And as you can see, the very first issue of the Resistance arc is Teen Titans 12. So this trade paperback collects the Resistance arc, then Batman Lost, and then 4 issues for the Bat Out of Hell arc. And the very first issue of the very first story, Resistance, is Teen Titans issue 12. What I'm also showing you here is the omnibus, which shows you all the issues for the whole of Dark Knight's Metal in sequence, if that's what you're interested in. Again, there's only one Teen Titans issue in here, which is Teen Titans issue 12. And then in addition to that, you can see all the other issues that are related to Dark Knight's Metal. If you want to know more, check out my video in section 3. Right, back to the map. Right, we're back at the map, and as I was just saying, here we've got the Dark Knight's Metal event. The only reason this is all entirely included is purely because of that one Teen Titans issue that intersects with it. But honestly, if you don't want to read it, you will get away with not reading Dark Knight's Metal. If you do want to read it, then you need to check out section 3 of my reading guide. But personally, I don't think that's something you need. Anyway, after that issue 12, we then have this, which is volume 3, The Return of Kid Flash. So this Teen Titans volume collects issues 13 and 14. And issue 14 ends with the return of a key character, which I'm not going to spoil, but is relevant, as you'll see in just a moment. There's issues 13 and 14. Issue 15 is not collected. And instead, what you have is the DC Holiday Special, the Teen Titans story from the DC Holiday Special 2017. I'm going to show you 2 covers now. One of them is for the DC Holiday Special 2017, and the second one is for a series that people keep on confusing with that issue. So I'm just going to show you both those images now. Take careful note. And now that we're back, this volume also then contains, after that holiday special, Teen Titans 16, Teen Titans 17, Teen Titans 18, and then Teen Titans 19, with Teen Titans 19 going directly into No Justice. So feeding straight into this event here. However, you're probably wondering why there's this over here, Super Sons. So we just said that issue 15 isn't collected in this volume, and the reason for that is actually collected over here in the mini event Super Sons, which intersects with both the series Superman and Super Sons. And what we'll do, we'll just cut away and have a look at that now. What we're looking at now is the overview of the Super Sons of Tomorrow event. Now this is a crossover between Superman, the series Super Sons, and the Teen Titans. It features Superman and his son John Kent dealing with a rogue Tim Drake from an alternate future. Now the Superman and Super Sons series are both written by Peter Tomasi, who writes this issue of Teen Titans, issue 15, that crosses into it. Similarly, Patrick Gleason is doing the art in the 2 Super series, Superman and Super Sons, and so also does it here too. Now, as you can see, the event concludes Superman 37, Super Sons 11, Teen Titans 15, Superman 38, and then Super Sons 12. This is the overview in the usual Thomas Judge style. I'm going to flip over to something else now. Let me know what you think. But just continuing on, this is available in a trade paperback, but it's not available in a standard size hardcover, and it is available in oversized hardcover format, but only as part of the Super Sons omnibus. We're going to talk about it a lot more when we get to section 8 of this reading guide. The antagonist for this event, which is a rogue alternate universe older Tim Drake, who eventually adopts the name Savior, has previously been seen in DC Rebirth over in the Batman section, which is section 6, which we'll get to soon, specifically in issues 965 to 968 of Detective Comics, which is collected as trade paperback volume with a small v 5 of Detective Comics, which is called A Lonely Place of Dying. It's a little bit difficult to place exactly when this fits in Teen Titans and the best place to read it, but I've given my best recommendation in the map. Speaking of which, let's go back to that here. And here we are back at the map again. So we were just looking over here at the Super Sons event. As I say, because issue 15, which is part of this, is set in the middle of this kind of run of issues, it's difficult to know exactly when to read this, especially because this says to be continued in No Justice, which makes you think it's a immediate cliffhanger you need to go to No Justice for. I don't think that's true. I think you can read volume 3 and then read Super Sons of Tomorrow. Obviously, if you're reading in singles, just read issues 13 and 14, then read the Super Sons of Tomorrow event, and then carry on. But assuming you're reading in trades, which is how I designed these guides, feel free to read Return of Kid Flash, then Super Sons of Tomorrow, and then No Justice. You don't actually have to read No Justice as an event, and I'm not really going to show very much about it, because the truth is, what you then do is go back into Teen Titans, and you'll be fine with that. In terms of this, what I need to point out is that everything prior to No Justice, so everything from here all the way through here, is what I would call part of the Benjamin Percy era. After this point, after the events of No Justice, we then enter a completely different era written by Adam Glass with art from Bernard Chang. Now, an annoying thing happens here. Whilst the issue numbers continue for single issues, the trade paperback collection numbers don't continue. They reset. So, this volume you can see here, which is called Teen Titans Full Throttle, is the 4th trade paperback in this DC Rebirth era. It collects Teen Titans Special number 1, which is branded at the top saying From the Pages of No Justice. I'll show you the cover here. And then as well as that, it contains issues 20 to 24. So continuing straight on from issue 19 of this volume here. Fine, all well, all good. But if you're looking for this, what you'll find is actually labelled as Teen Titans Volume 1, even though it contains just the Teen Titans No Justice special and then Teen Titans issue 20 to 24. That is annoying and weird, but these things sometimes happen in comics when you're dealing with volumes with a small v. So keep in mind, this is a whole new lineup of new teens under Robin, with a new approach and new ethos. It does refer to the events of No Justice repeatedly, so it's important that you read the special, which is the first issue here. It's also, I guess, you could say you should read No Justice as an event here, and unless you've got a particular reason not to read No Justice, I would say, yeah, feel free to read that next. But if you don't, sorry, I'm just zooming out. If you don't get a chance to read this, you'll be okay as long as you read the special, which is collected at the start of this volume. But anyway, Volume 3, Super Sons of Tomorrow, No Justice kind of optional, but I mean, why wouldn't you read it? And then you can go straight into this, which, like I say, is the 4th volume, but unfortunately is now volume with a small v1 again. It's annoying. At least they continue then consistently, because here you have volume with a small v2, which contains issues 25 to 26. And then Teen Titans Annual 1. The thing about Annual 1 is it does reference the events of the Heroes in Crisis event, which does happen elsewhere and isn't part of the Teen Titans universe. And then it has issues of Teen Titans, which is Teen Titan 27. And it then has this issue. This is Mysteries of Love in Space, which is an 80-page issue with several romantic vignettes from across the DC line. The trade paperback, which is this, now we're back at the map, only collects the one to do with Crush, who's this character at the back here, Lobo's daughter, basically. Now, this volume is called Turn It Up, and it is, like I say, volume with a small v2, even though it is the 5th trade paperback collection of this particular series. I know it's annoying and confusing, that's why I made the guide. So then if we zoom out a little bit, what happens after that is we then have the Terminus agenda, which is, well, it's something we need to talk about in a bit more detail. So here's the Terminus agenda. It's a Deathstroke Teen Titans crossover. Titans is not involved. It's only the 2 series here that are involved in the Terminus agenda. And it revolves around Deathstroke trying to mentally mess with Damian Wayne and to kind of sow distrust within the team. It contains the following issues you can see here. Deathstroke 41, which is a prologue issue for the Terminus agenda. Then Teen Titans 28, Deathstroke 42, Teen Titans 29, Deathstroke 43. And Teen Titans 30 is the epilogue to this event. Let me flip to a different design style. Like I say, I really want to get your thoughts as to whether you prefer the I am Thomas Judge design, or if you would prefer the more polished kind of DC design for these overviews. Something to just point out whilst we look at these issues is that Deathstroke 43 ends up with Deathstroke being sort of quote-unquote dead. It's not really a spoiler. Obviously, there's another issue. You'll see what I mean. And the final issue, so Teen Titans 30, finally has Lobo turn up, which then feeds directly into what's happening next for Teen Titans. So this is an essential read, whether or not you're reading Teen Titans or Deathstroke. And obviously, we'll cover it in the next video in this series, which is talking about Deathstroke. So what we have here is the Terminus agenda. We're staying on the Teen Titans line on the top. After you read the Terminus agenda, I've deliberately left quite a space before we get the next volume. And the next volume is volume with a small v3 called Seek and Destroy. This contains issues 31 to 38. But the reason I put it here is a lot of these issues are part of the Year of the Villain event. Only in an optional way, don't worry about it. So issue 31 has the attack of Lobo. Then issue 32 is an offer issue. Issue 33 is Dark Gifts. Issue 34 is Evil Unleashed. And it also makes reference to the Year of the Villain Black Mask one-shot. Issue 35 is Doom Rising. And issue 36 is Year of the Villain, the one-shot special for this series, which is called Year of the Villain Crush. All of those issues are covered in the Year of the Villain kind of general story arc. It's a sprawling, messy event. And if you are interested in knowing more about it, you need to check out section 3 of this reading guide, which covers that event in excruciating detail. But what I would say is if you're just interested in Teen Titans, and surely that's why you're here, you can just read this volume and then ignore Year of the Villain. Just be aware that it is happening. One thing that I will very much stress to you is that Seek and Destroy has some major plot twists in it. So if you're reading these issues as part of a Year of the Villain reading order, I do say in my Year of the Villain guide, just don't read it. Just don't read the Teen Titans as part of the Year of the Villain, because you will ruin the Teen Titans for you and it adds nothing to Year of the Villain. If you're reading it as part of Teen Titans, then absolutely read it, because issue 31 to 38 are great and has some really interesting twists and turns. One thing I will add is to fully understand this arc, I would strongly recommend reading the Damian Wayne comics from the New 52, which are Batman and Robin by Grant Morrison, Batman Incorporated in the New 52 by Grant Morrison, and then Robin Son of Batman by Grant Morrison. So I would strongly recommend that you check those out. With that out of the way, what I would say is that we should then move over to volume 4, which is the 7th trade paperback, which is called Robin No More. Now, that is riddled by spoilers and contains issues 39 to 47. So 39, 40, 41, 42 has got massive spoilers for things happening over in Batman. Issue 43 has got, again, massive spoilers about things happening in both Batman and Superman. Then you have issue 44. Then you have Annual 2, which has more Batman spoilers. Then you have issue 45, which has more Superman spoilers. Then you have issue 46, which has more spoilers for a series called Suicide Squad Bad Blood, which we'll be checking out in section 10. And then issue 47, the last issue of this trade collection, has spoilers for how the final bit of this series, Titans, ends as well. So long story short, this is just riddled by spoilers throughout. Either you need to accept that, like a type J reader, or you need to put this on hold and read all the other things that I've just told you before you come back to this, which I don't think is really an ideal way to read it. But there you are. Some sources on the internet do say it only contains up to issue 46. I can confirm it does contain up to and including issue 47, because I do have the actual trade paperback in front of me. And then that is the end of the Teen Titans series. Although, to be fair, I'm now going to talk about this one other extra bit here, which is collected in Endless Winter. Now, while it absolutely isn't essential reading and it isn't collecting a Teen Titans collection of any kind, we do have to remember there is a single one-off event special for Teen Titans that came out the month after issue 47, the last issue of the Teen Titans series. And this is the Teen Titans special in the Endless Winter event, which I'm showing you here. Again, I've gone over this in section 3, where I've gone over all the major events that intersect with Justice League. So it's worth remembering that is there, and you can pick this up as a standard size hardcover. Apparently it's not available as a standard size trade paperback. I'd be very interested in getting your thoughts. Does anyone have it as a standard size trade paperback? Anyway, this particular issue and one shot comprises Endless Winter, and that should be the end of it. It then goes into Future State, which is here, and as you can see, this is the end of what I consider to be the DC Rebirth era. And after Future State, we then actually have the next Teen Titans series in Teen Titans Academy, which starts in May 2021, which is firmly in the Infinite Frontier era. So frankly, we're not looking at any of that. One thing that I will, however, mention is that several months after Teen Titans Academy started, so in October 2021, firmly during the Infinite Frontier, an uncollected one-shot came out called Are You Afraid of Darkseid? And this, bizarrely, was definitively set during the Rebirth era. So it's really weird. It's not collected anywhere either, but if you are interested, track this down as a single issue to check out if you're a Teen Titans fan and you want to do the full DC Rebirth read-through. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go back to the map and do a really quick end-to-end overview for you, the Teen Titans fan who is watching this. And back to the map. Hopefully that's been helpful. Hopefully, if you come across these videos and you're in this section, it's because you're someone who's interested in the Teen Titans or Titans family. So let's very quickly go through this, because I think on an overview, overarching level, it's useful to have a look at what's going on here. We've got Teen Titans, we've got Trade Paperback 1, we then have the Lazarus contract, which is absolutely fine and crosses with quite a few different things. We then have this issue here, The Rise of Aqualad. You can ignore Dark Knight's Metal if you want, and frankly, unless you specifically want to read it, yeah, completely ignore it. You then have this, which is volume with the small V3, The Return of Kid Flash. After that, read Super Sons of Tomorrow. If you want to, there's no harm in reading No Justice. There's only 4 issues. But if you don't want to, that's fine. You would go straight into the Adam Glass era, because it's no longer written by Benjamin Percy. Once you're in the Adam Glass era, you can then move on to volume 2 called Turn It Up. And that then takes you into the Terminus agenda, which is all good. Finally, you may be interested in reading this, Seek and Destroy, which overlaps with a lot of Year of the Villain stuff, but can totally be read without reading Year of the Villain. I'd strongly recommend not reading Year of the Villain if you're only interested in Teen Titans, that's for damn sure. And then you have the final one, which is Robin No More. That wraps up the series. You have a one-shot in Endless Winter, and then the one-shot Are You Afraid of Darkseid issue. There are unfortunately quite a few spoilers here that intersect with other series. So for example, Super Sons of Tomorrow intersects with the Superman Super Sons series quite a bit, and also relies or heavily depends on whether or not you've read the future Tim Drake arc from A Lonely Place of Dying from Detective Comics, which by the way is excellent. But it's also a little bit disruptive then reading that here. But I'm assuming you're a Batman fan, because everyone's a Batman fan. So hey, maybe you've read that first. If you go over here, as I say, this particular volume has loads of Batman spoilers for the end of the Tom King run on Batman, again in section 6. So it is difficult to kind of read this unless you've got a very relaxed view towards spoilers, or unless you're reading this relatively towards the end of doing your DC Rebirth read through, in which case all these Batman spoilers and all these various Superman spoilers and Detective Comics spoilers, they won't really impact you very much anymore. I'm just providing the information, take of it what you will. And then, like I say, it ends with Endless Winter, which I showed you. We then have Future State, which I showed you and I don't include. And then it takes us over to sort of post-Rebirth issues and comics. Right, hopefully that's useful. Do you like the new map? It still looks kind of busy, but it's obviously a lot smaller than the one we used for Section 3, which is for Justice League and Suicide Squad. Is this helpful? Are you a Teen Titans fan? Let me know.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. As always, please follow me on Twitter at I am Thomas Judge, where I will post a daily review of whatever comics I've been reading. You can get an idea of what I'm up to on the channel. And as always, please support the channel by heading over to Amazon.com and checking out my prose novel about superheroes. It's a completely original piece of work. The first episode in it is called Arrivals, and the series as a whole is called No Gods or Kings. You can find an excerpt of that on my website, nogodsorkings.com. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.